The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. Dave Martino is here.
I am
star.
Here. The
star, halfway on your YouTube channel. Holy cow.
Yeah. Halfway to 1,000.
See, look how famous you're getting in a short time. Well,
Right.
I'll let you take over the show. You start running it.
Sure. Yeah, with 500 subscribers.
Yeah, well, that's a start. We all start somewhere.
It's a start. It's good.
First show, I think I had one person listen. Everyone starts somewhere.
You gotta start somewhere, that's right.
Yeah, at the beginning, middle, and end. We're about to hit our 1,000th show.
Wow.
Yeah, 1,000 show, and that's coming up in, less than 2 weeks. We'll be there.
It's amazing.
Milestone.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, there's more shows, too. That's just 1,000 that I'm allowing to be released. Just for the people that, have been with me since the beginning. There was a lot of other shows I did, too, right? So
that's the stuff in the secret vault.
Yeah, that's the stuff I haven't decided yet, because I was really bad. Anyway. So let's see. Now we are going to be talking horror, classic horror today. And we've got a really good writer here. He's been on just before, and so people should know him. And if you missed that show, you should go back and listen. That was about his book called A Child Alone with Strangers. And, of course, that, I believe, is up for a few awards, too. So now joining us to talk about his new book called Gothic, we've got Mr. Philip Fracassi. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much, Alan. Great to be back.
Yeah. So your Child Alone with Strangers, is that right? I think it got a few nominations, or it's certainly got a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's been getting pretty good attention. It's been getting a lot of great reviews, and it hasn't been, as far as I know, it hasn't been nominated for any awards, but it just came out, late October of last year. So it's still pretty new to the field, and I'm already cannibalizing it with another book. So probably not helping myself on that front, but it is what it is.
No, and that's kind of a tough thing. I do this all the time because I'm writing a series for the House of Mystery with interviews and stuff and different murder shows. And then at the same time I'm writing my book, and sometimes they all come out at the same time, and I think it might hurt, but I don't know,
Well, it's certainly a lot more chaotic. It's certainly a lot more to promote, right? And but it's weird. I have, as it turned out, I think I had something crazy like 4 books all coming out within a 12-month window, and 3 of them which are novels, and because I have another one coming out in July, and it's just it just worked out that way. It was certainly not planned. It just you spend all these years trying to sell your books to publishers, and then all of a sudden, like, the dam kind of breaks, and you sell stuff and it's great, but then you have to kind of figure out when everything's going to come out. So yeah, but hopefully things will slow down a little bit, moving forward, just so I can get not have to promote 4 books at the same time would be nice. But it is a blessing to have so many, publishers willing to put my work out there. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, because that's usually the hard thing is the publishers sometimes don't want so much so fast,
Right.
And so it kind of gets in the way. But I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, in a sense, because I found at the end of the day, as time goes by, the books end up all doing well. It's just, I think you get so overwhelmed. If anything, when you're doing a lot of the promoting, it probably takes away from your writing time, like right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Last year, 2022 was a very difficult year on that front because I had a lot of writing to do, and I also had a lot of responsibility to promote the books that were coming out. This year is going to be not quite as bad because, Child Alone with Strangers is out there now, and Gothic is coming out on Friday. And then I'll have a nice break to write a new book for Nightfire and Orbit that's coming out in 2024. Before I have to start really getting into the promotion of my book coming out in July. So yeah, things will steady out a little bit here, but it's, like I said, it's a really, it's a great problem to have for sure.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Yes, it could be a lot. I've been there. I've been on the worst parts,
I mean, you could be logging the books through the drive-through when you're working, right? And do you still have to do a job, or are you kind of broken away from working?
No, I've been fortunate to have, I think just over a year now, I've been writing full time, but actually not so much, but a year and a half. I've been writing full time now. And, so I'm very fortunate, that it's, and it's partly the books, selling the books has been obviously, stabilizing financially, but, there's also things that are going on, with film and TV adaptation, and that money has, helps a lot. And I've done some screenwriting work, and that helps a lot. So when I write full time, I'm not just writing a book, and sitting at home typing this one book for the whole year. I have 8 or 9 projects all going on simultaneously. And some of them are screenplays. Some of them are, I'm writing short stories for entertainment companies that hire me, or I'm, doing deluxe editions of my books, and I make a little bit of money there, or I'm writing articles or essays or reviews. So I do a lot of different things to try and, make it a full-time job. So you gotta hustle, for sure. But the books are kind of like the reward, when you get your book put out, it's worth all the hard work for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You're sort of like me, all over the place. Got a lot of things going.
Yeah. I think you have to be, if you want to do it full time and you're not a New York Times bestseller. And even if you are, sometimes I think you gotta hustle and find income in a lot of different ways.
Well, for me, it's more about, I only have so much time left.
Good Lord. This got dark.
Well, no, it's perfect setup. This is my segue into your writing. But no, in the sense that, when I turn 60, it hits you. All of a sudden, holy cow, 60.
Yeah.
And all these people are dropping off in their 70s, 80s. So you're thinking, well, 20 years, maybe? So I've still got a lot to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's different than when you're 30, even when you turn 40. Because, you can do 20 good years easy and you're still only 60 or 50. So it's just a different feeling. I sort of, I have no problem keeping lots going because you do it while you can, it's different for you. You're younger, but.
Well, I'm not that much younger. I'm in my 50s, but I hear you. I actually wrote an article. I wrote a blog post. I think it was about a year ago where I think the title of which was, "It's not prolificity, it's panic."
Yeah.
I was kind of responding to the fact that it's like, look, it's not that I am such a wizard when it comes to writing a lot. It's because I'm completely panicked about getting everything written out that I want to, while I have time, while I can. So I'm 100% with you on that front. And I not in a morbid way, but I definitely think, like, to your point, it's like, I'm not this is, I think for a lot of people, people find comfort in different things as it pertains to, like, how they, leisure time, and for me, this is all I want to be doing. So I'm very happy to just be at my desk working 12 hours a day, every day is, for me is a blessing, and it's very fulfilling. So I love it.
No, I think it is too. It's a thrill. I think I'm a combination of panic and also the thing is you strike while you can, because once you get some attention and people do notice you and you're having some success, you want to put the best foot forward. You want to keep doing it, or I do anyway. I want to make sure,
for sure,
because that 15 minutes can go real quick. It doesn't take long.
Yeah. I'm not buying any boats.
Come on, you're not doing the.
I'm hoarding every dime I can, because exactly right. Because you never know, and as writers, we all know this is, you gotta ride the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys and all that stuff. And, things are going great right now, but, 2018, I couldn't sell, a book or a story to save my life. And now I can't write fast enough. So it's, but it could go back to that, any day. So you try and, yeah, definitely just kind of like work as hard as you can, hope for the best, but, try and keep an even keel and keep hoarding those dimes because you might need them next year.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Otherwise you end up, being a hooker somewhere.
Again.
Well, some people see that as dark. I see that as kind of fun, but,
it depends what corner you're working, man.
Yeah, it depends. It might be a high-end one.
Who your pimp is, all that stuff. There's a lot that comes into it.
High-end one. They fly me away for weekends to nice hotels. And this isn't, I don't have to go to the street.
Classy.
Yeah. No. Well, that brings up, your book, speaking of dark. Now, Gothic is a very, the name in itself, I think, brings to mind something a little darker, a little bit scarier. So,
yeah.
What kind of concept do you have here?
Yeah. So, all my books tend to be a little bit different. It's kind of whatever, whatever I'm feeling like. And, Child Alone with Strangers was very much a crime thriller, with strong horror elements, obviously. Gothic is really an old school throwback horror novel. I really wanted to write something that in my mind was a bit of an homage to, the Stephen King and Dean Koontz and Clive Barker and Peter Straub novels I grew up reading in the 80s. And there's a lot of like wink and, nudge references in the novel to a lot of, horror authors, contemporary and from the past, as it were. But, yeah, I just wanted to write something that was like, sort of like a late night cable B movie, kind of like horror movie, the ones that you used to rent on VHS when you were a kid, when people like our age were kids, and you'd go over to your buddy's house with 6 friends and you'd put the movie in and you'd watch it till the tape ran out. I really just kind of wanted to create that sort of vibe. I call it like a Sam Raimi vibe for those who are familiar and enjoy Sam Raimi. But so yeah, it's definitely a throwback horror novel. It's a lot of fun. It's a little campy. It's really scary. It's pretty violent. It's very dark. But ultimately it's supposed to be like a haunted house. It's a ride. And, so that hopefully people take it as such and, and enjoy it. But that was the idea behind writing it. Yeah.
Geez, I'm so old. I remember that we didn't just have to rent the VHSs. We had to rent the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember
doing that myself.
I used to rent I don't want to get weird, but I used to do when, you go to like, when you go to like a cabin or you go like, to a house where, maybe you're on a date and you wanted to watch a movie and you didn't have like a TV there or whatever. You go to Blockbuster and you rent the VHS and some videos and
yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Now you just,
yeah, my wife and I did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you just pull up your laptop and you're good to go. As long as you have Wi-Fi.
Him and his wife did that just last week. So
well,
a VHS purist, Dave. I like it.
Yes, exactly.
Like
hey, I still have a VHS, I have a VCR. I still have one.
Oh, good for you.
I do.
Yeah, is it hooked up and everything?
It is hooked up.
Wow. Do you have like a VHS stash? Like your
I have a lot of stuff like projects that I worked on in school and stuff, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I do have some.
Yeah, I think about 5 years ago, I finally was like, okay, that's enough. I'm just gonna like, get rid of all this stuff and like, come on, like it's taking up a lot of space.
Yeah, well, it does, and I love to collect.
It's like having the It's like having the CD. It's like having all the CDs in your closet. You're like, why do I have all these CDs?
Yeah, but what do you do with them? I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I've got like
you throw them out.
Oh,
man.
but I feel like that feels like such a disgrace. I'll just die and let someone in the younger generation throw it out. I don't know.
Yes.
Well, I did mine in stages. So I had the CDs with the CD cases, right? And then I got rid of the cases and I put all the CDs into like those big CD binders. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, but I was like, but then I didn't want to throw away the artwork. So I kept the little booklets and I kept the CDs and now I've got these giant folders.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
That are like in the attic, right? And I'm like, and I refuse to let them go.
I have 30 of those book binders full of CDs.
I think I have like 3. I don't have 30.
Oh, I have 30. I was crazy. I have like, it's sad.
Yeah, they're just in a box in the attic. It's ridiculous, but I refuse to get rid of them.
Keep them, save them.
Yeah, right. Let my kid figure out what they are.
That's right.
When I die and they go through all my stuff in the attic, I'll be like, "What are these things?"
Yeah.
Wait till he finds the cassettes.
I know, right? I did want to ask though, why old school horror? Why did you decide to go back to like the 80s and the 90s? Was there something that compelled you?
I think I just wanted. Well, I don't think so. I write. I'm very. When I write something or take on a new project, it's very much how it's a mood thing. It's what I feel, what interests me at that time. So, like I've written, like the book I have coming out in July is like that's like a period piece, and then, but it's also very horror. But then I wrote a science fiction novel that I'm in the process of selling to another publisher. So, and then I have like another book that's a straight thriller that has. I would not even say, is horror. So I kind of write by whatever I'm in the mood to write. I don't really hold, I don't keep myself in one lane. I like being able to write whatever I feel like writing. But I think with Gothic in particular, because the plot is about a writer, a horror writer, everyone can roll their eyes now, but it's about a horror writer who is, in his late 60s and he's had his heyday and he was huge in the 90s and 80s. A la all those authors I mentioned, and now he doesn't want to write horror anymore. He wants to write historical fiction, but the publisher is banging on him to write another New York Times bestseller horror novel, and he's kind of lost it. And he gets this antique desk from his partner that is basically cursed, and he starts using it, and he starts writing amazing, dark, super, super, super dark horror, and it becomes a big hit again. But the desk has it's very Faustian. The desk, takes a price. So it's him struggling with basically it's a morality thing, which is success versus, happiness in a way. And, so I think that being the story, I really wanted to write it, immerse it in that kind of old school horror vibe because of that was the story I was writing. Cause in a way, it's kind of, like I said, it's a bit of a late night cable movie premise, and so I thought I would just really go for it and have fun with it, and kind of make it like an old, write it like an old school horror novel. So that's kind of why I think that's partly why I decided to write it in that way, just because of it fit thematically with the plot.
You also said that it's a mood thing, so awfully dark, right? So what have you been in a dark mood? This is where, you got some problems here.
I'm always in a dark mood now. I'm a horror writer.
Yeah, but has it been darker lately? You can tell us. No, we won't tell anyone.
No, it's actually been great lately. Like we talked about, I'm actually, I've been having a lot of fun, with all this stuff coming out. But I do think I do think that you do write a bit to your own emotional state to some degree. And I think it, maybe not the story or the plot, but definitely the way you write. And, writing like that science fiction novel was such a different experience because it was it was basically, a lot of hard science. So I was reading a lot of books on physics and, all that and science and all that kind of stuff. And I was talking to scientists and, picking their brains about time travel stuff. And it was just a very different experience because when you write something like Gothic, man, you just sit down and you go, it's just, it's so much fun, for me, to write something like that because I don't have to worry about, historical elements. It's not a period piece. It's not, there's no hard science elements to it. It's just made up hysteria. So, it was a fun project for me to fit in between maybe some projects that were difficult. A Child Alone with Strangers was a very difficult novel to write because there's so many moving parts. There's so many characters. It takes place in the 90s or the 80s, I think. And there's a lot of crime elements. So I wanted to get all the police procedural stuff right. So that was kind of a really difficult novel to write. And Gothic was really just like a blast. I just had so much fun writing it. So and then then I kind of wrote those other novels. One was a period novel. One was science fiction. The novel I'm writing right now is a period novel. So I'm actually interested to get back into Gothic 2. I had an idea for a sequel that I'm debating writing. And again, it's just because I feel like writing something really fun and, that I can just sit down at the desk and, go for it. So I think it's kind of like all those elements come into play when you decide what you want to do next.
How do you get into the mind of someone that's going insane, like in this sort of story? I don't even know if going insane is really describing it, but he's
that's right.
Yeah, there's something going on, and so what do you do to put yourself in that state?
Well, it just comes really natural.
Okay. Have you got a
I
desk
would love to
lately,
say, I would love to tell you that I had to do something to kind of put myself there, but I think it's one of, in all honesty, and this, I say this with as little ego as possible. I don't mean it that way, but I do think that one of the things about being a good writer, or being able to write a lot of different characters and a lot of different situations and a lot of different voices, I think it's just it's one of the things that I inherently have that is like a talent that I am able to do it. It's just something that I was born with. I just like, just like anyone who is a specialist in something, like I'm terrible at pretty much everything else, but I am very good at like thinking, putting myself into a lot of different people's heads, whether it be a child, or, an older woman or an insane person or a serial killer or a monster. For some reason for me, it's very easy just to kind of slide around and slip into those different mindsets. So yeah, I think part of it is, for me anyway, I think a lot of it comes from, my imagination is somewhat visual. So once I kind of have the idea of what and also characters are easy for me. Once I develop a character and I kind of know who they are and what their deal is and how they think and how they act and what their motivations are, for me, it's very easy just to start writing like them or, using their voice. So yeah, it was nothing, different than I do with anybody else. Cause even in the same scene, as you guys know, you're writing 4 different voices and they all have to be authentic. So you just kind of jump from one to the other to the other.
You don't dress up in a woman's dress. I see you as an old lady.
I'm not a method writer. No.
I bet you that would be fun.
I do. I will say this. I mean, the only things that I guess, as far as mood is concerned is there are some stories, and there are some novels where, when able, when deadlines aren't an issue, but, there are some books that are easier to write at night, for example, that are very difficult for me to write during the day, like when there's the sunlight coming through the window. Gothic was one of those books. Boys in the Valley was one of those books. A couple stories I've been writing, I definitely am much easier for me to slip into the right mindset, when it's dark outside or when it's nighttime. So, and then the other, that is something that is very, real. And then the other thing that I do is I listen to the music I listen to when I write. I don't listen to any music with vocals, but I have I have about 100 different things that I choose from when I'm writing something. And once I get, a specific soundtrack or a specific composer or a specific artist, whatever it is, for that book or that story, I don't stray from that. It sinks me right back into that moment. So, or that mood for that book or the tone for that book. So those are the 2 things I guess that I would say influence me when I'm writing a specific story, is when I write it during the time of day and also what I listen to kind of get me right back into that book or story.
Well, vocals drown out the voices, right?
Well, yeah, that I can't do. There are a lot of writers who can write. Like I know, like Paul Tremblay is a horror writer. He writes to hard punk rock and with, but I can't, if I hear words, if someone's singing something, I can't, it throws me off completely. So I can't hear anyone, I can't hear anyone else talking while I'm trying to write dialogue or whatever, or even write prose. It's just, it breaks my brain. So
yeah, I'm the same way.
Some people write it doesn't bother them. It surprises them.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you, Alan? Yeah. So it's weird, right?
I usually have 2 TV programs going and the music.
Oh my God. No, I'm basically a white noise kind of guy.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, I can't do all that distraction. Would drive me crazy. I just get too like immersed in it, and I think it.
But you see when you've got 3 or even 4 things going, I've got like Miami Vice going, I've got some punk music going, then I've got some Hawaii Five-0, the classic going. I've got all this stuff going on. That anxiety is what I want to write. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to capture my own anxiety when I write. Even if I'm not writing about a character that has anxiety, I'm writing in that feeling, if that makes sense.
It does that's really interesting. And I wonder if that's why some people, like I was mentioning Paul, like I wonder that's why because it gives them that sense of urgency. And I will say that's, to a degree that is like, depending on what I'm listening to, sometimes it's, very serene and sometimes it's very aggressive, but yeah, so I get it totally. And there are people like that, like it's just kind of how we're wired, right? Like there are people who need a TV on to sleep, which something I'll never understand, but it's just white noise to them, or it's just soothing for them. So it's just, yeah.
How do you talk about developing your characters? Do you write out character sheets? Do you learn about them as you go, and then kind of go back and fill in from the beginning? How do you do that?
No, I don't do that, and I know a lot of writers do, and I know it's kind of a standard practice. I don't really. The only thing I prep before writing is the story. I prep I write pretty extensive outlines for my novels. So, it's really just about the beats, for the plot and the action and the sequencing. Is not, because when I'm writing, I don't want to worry about that stuff. I just want to focus on the prose and the voices in my head and all that stuff. I don't want to worry about like what's going to happen next plot wise. So I'm a big outliner. But I know exactly what you're describing, and no, I don't do that. The only thing I come up with ahead of time that I write down is like their names. Sometimes I write down a very brief description of what they look like, just so I can reference it and I don't forget. Sometimes you forget what color eyes what someone has or whatever. But for the most part, they're all just in my head, and I just kind of run with that. For whatever reason, I know that I know it's an exercise where you can, sometimes writers will write like a background to their character, or like a page of background, like where they came from and their childhood, and kind of some things about them, just so they can feel more immersed in that character and who that person is, which I think is a great idea. I personally have never done that, and I haven't ever really felt the need to do it. I think there are definite moments, though, you mentioned while I'm writing. I think there are definitely moments while I'm writing, here and there, where I'll be curious about how a character would respond to something, and I might kind of step away for a minute and sort of think about it. And I think even once or twice I've written like some notes, because when I outline, I use Scrivener. So I have all my bullet points there for my story. Then I also have my characters, and I have like images and stuff that I use for reference. And in those character folders or whatever files, I'll like make some quick notes like about something that maybe pertains directly to something I'm writing about during the writing of the book or whatever. So it does happen, but for the most part, no, I don't do a lot of pre-development for characters. I think once I've got them in my head, they're kind of there. One of the ways I describe how I choose what to write, and this pertains to kind of what you said, is when I have an idea, I let it sort of just hang out in my head, rent free. And, typically, and I kind of like play around with it while I'm doing other things, or I just think about it, or I sleep on it or whatever. And usually when I have an idea, if characters start growing out of that idea and start interacting around that idea, then I know it's a good idea, and I know I've got something. If I'm thinking about an idea and those characters don't come to life, and the idea just kind of stagnates, then I usually ditch it and move on. Like, I know that sounds weird and a little hippie, but that's sort of, but that's generally how I when I think, and I start getting, and then once the characters are formulated and they start doing stuff and they start interacting and they start, creating more, they kind of start stretching that idea like taffy, and all of a sudden there's all these different things happening. That's when I get excited, and that's when I sit down and start writing an outline.
So I'm interested in, when you, see people on the street or people in the store or people around, do you sort of write them as a character in your mind? Like you just see people somewhere and you just kind of go and kind of picture who they are and kind of characterize them somewhat?
I don't think it's about when I see somebody. I think it's just, characters tend to be, an amalgam of all the people we've experienced over our lives. And I think it's those little experiences that you have that, kind of like in Terminator 2, when the robe T-1000 or whatever blows up into all those little bits of, shiny mercury, and then they all kind of like slowly congeal together. It's sort of like, I think with a character, it's like you have all these little bits of mercury from your life and these little incidents of these little, or conversations you've had, or, experiences you've had with people, or, and then you kind of like mush them all together in your head to make, one new character. I think it's more about that than it is about, if I see somebody, I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting person. More, and less about that and more, I think it's just something that kind of comes from the, the pool of experience, where I've just had, had experiences with so many different, interesting, sometimes good, sometimes bad, humans. And all those experiences, I think, kind of help me build, the characters in my head. And, and it's not always something that's just like comes to me, and what I mean by that is, being transparent. I mean, being a male, writer, it's a little more of a challenge for me to write female characters because I don't have as much experience with female character, in my life and also in my own imagination and with the things that I've experienced as a human being on planet Earth. I haven't had a lot of I haven't had any of those female experiences. So I work a little harder when it's a character that I don't have as much experience interacting with or personal experience experiencing things that they might be experiencing, thoughts, feelings, and also just like events in their life. So I work harder to try and make those characters authentic, by talking to other people or, getting input or whatever it is. But yeah, but it's a characterization is very tricky. And, it's something that I actually really focus on. It's something I do work really hard at. 'Cause I do want, even in my most, crazy, horror stories, I always want the characters to feel authentic so that the reader feels the experience a little more than they would if the character was cartoonish or one-dimensional or whatever.
Well, you got to start trying on dresses again, and that'll get you in the character.
It comes back to that.
Always comes back to the dress. Makes the deal. It does.
Right.
So how do you know when your book is done? How do you know, is there some sort of particular thing that happens? Just a feeling, or just when do you know that, okay, this is done, this is ready?
I think I'm sure you guys can, sympathize with this, is you never really feel like the book is done. I never read if I don't have to. But once a book is published, man, I never want to look at that book again, because all I'll see are all I will see are all the things that are wrong with it. You know what I mean? That I should have fixed, or that I can't fix now. So I think anyone could tell you that you could go on writing and rewriting a book forever. I think, but to answer your question more constructively, I feel like when my process is, I write the book or story, I do one on-screen, rewrite where I just go through and clean up all the prose and make sure it makes sense and all that kind of stuff, flesh out things and all that kind of deal. And then maybe I do a third pass depending on how good the second pass is. But for the most part, my first drafts are pretty, I would say 90% there. And then I print everything out and I do like a red line. And then I do something unusual that I don't think a lot of writers do, which is after I've done a red line edit, I actually go to Amazon's KDP program. And what I do is I print out a bound copy of the book. I create my own personal arc of the book, advanced reading copy of the book, because I want to read it in bound format before anyone else reads it, even in manuscript form. Because I find things reading it in a book that I didn't find reading it on, printed out computer paper, or didn't find, discover reading it out on the screen. So once that's all done, then is when I usually send it off to the editor and they do their proofreading and stuff like that. And, and fixing errors and all that kind of thing. And then, so there's all this process. And really it's not until that final, where you're going through and fixing the, a handful of small typos or whatever that I really feel like, okay, I feel like the book is now ready for publication. As far as the story is concerned, like I said, my first drafts are pretty clean. So, I feel like once I get that first draft, then I feel like the story is done, and really from there it's just sweetening it.
Well, it's interesting that you see things in a bound style book rather than just a manuscript printed out. That's interesting. There must be just the way it's presented, hey, the way it looks.
I think it's just the way you experience it, yeah. Because when I'm reading a double spaced manuscript, I'm not really experiencing the book. I'm reading the type. I'm reading the text. I'm reading for errors. I'm reading very clinically, I guess would be the way to put it.
It doesn't feel like a book.
Yeah. And then when you're reading a book and it's in book form and it's single spaced and the whole thing or whatever, you kind of, it's staggering how much I catch. And I have all my books, I'm looking up at them, where I have dog-eared to death, where I've just made corrections on those bound copies because there was stuff that I didn't find, or that even proofreaders or editors didn't find, just reading from the manuscript. So yeah, I think it's just how you experience the book, experience the story, and I think you experience it a different way, reading it like you would read any other book versus like reading a manuscript. At least for me.
Right. Yeah. No, it kind of makes sense, So there's Amazon. Is that like a book site?
Remember when Amazon just was literally, they just sold books and it was like, what? How are they ever going to make money just selling books? That's insanity. I'm not going to invest in that stupid company.
Yeah. What a waste of money.
Yeah, it says dummy. Yeah. Amazon. Yeah, and it's interesting. People have asked me how I do it, and it's the same thing as if you were to self-publish a book. It's the same process you would go through, and then when you get to the very last stage, when you're about to hit the publish button, before you hit the publish button, Amazon asks you if you would like to receive, proofs. And so I order the proofs, and I just never actually hit the publish button. So and I can always go back and order more and more of those proofs if I need them. And for me, it's very helpful. I don't do that for my stories or anything like that. I only do it for my novels.
When you complete a book like this, how do you think it changes you?
I don't know. I don't ever feel different when I finish a book. I'm always looking to the next thing. And I know there's sometimes I reference this is a lot of, actors, I've known actors throughout my life, and a lot of them, even who are big stars, whatever, they kind of all tend to say the same thing. They always say never watch the movies that they're in. They make the movie and then they move on, and they don't want to, because part of it is they don't, much like what I'm saying is they don't want to see themselves because all they'll do is nitpick to death their performance. And, but for me, I'm always on to the next thing. So I think when I finish a book, I'm energized to start something new right away. I'm always like, oh, that was great. Hopefully. And now I really want to start something else, and I'll start thinking about what's next. And, so I think if anything, finishing a project energizes me to start write something new, that's maybe different, or that excites me, or that interests me, in a different way. So I think the only thing I could say is that, when I finish something, I get energized to write something else right away. I'm just I think it's very satisfying to finish that project and then and then be like, okay, great. Now I get to start to do something else. The only caveat to that is if the book sells, you spend so much time rewriting the book, and that is versus like writing something new. And that is my least favorite part of being a published author is rewriting the same damn book 10 times, because that's that is a slog, and it can be because you know what happens. You know it's grueling. It's grueling, and it's just brutal, and you're just like, and then usually by the end of it, I'm just like, if I have to read this book one more goddamn time, I'm going to lose my mind. And but yeah, you do. You have to go through it again and again, and you want it to be perfect, at least as perfect as possible. And that's also kind of a bummer because it takes away so much time from writing new things. And I think that was one of the things we talked about, at the beginning. One of the things that was very difficult for me in the last year was I couldn't write a lot of new stuff because I literally had I had a novel come out in November. I had a novel come out in December. I had a story collection coming out in October, and then I had these 2 books that are coming out this year. And they have a 3rd collection coming out in October of this year. I have 3 books coming out this year. So point being, though, I was spending so much time rewriting and editing all these books and stories that I had already written, that I didn't really have much time to write anything new. And that made it for a grueling year. And that's part of why I don't want to necessarily get into publishing a lot of books every year, because frankly, for every book you publish, that's months of work of not just that's after the book is done, rewriting it and dealing with the publishers and dealing with promotion and trying to get people, to want to buy the book. And it's such a lot of work and so time consuming. So I love to do it, but I don't love to do it times 4 at the same time. So, I want to kind of get that balance back a little bit where I'm spending as much time writing as I am editing and or promoting and all that stuff that comes with, being your own business.
Yeah, because after you do all that re-editing and getting all that work done, and then you got to talk to people like us to promote it.
I know. It's a pain in the ass, man. But I'm obviously
it is.
Well, no, but like I said earlier, publishing the book is the reward for all that hard work.
Yeah.
When that book comes out and people are excited about it, hopefully, and the cover looks cool, and you get to talk about it, or you get to go to a bookstore and sign copies of the book for people, that's the reward. That's the reward for all the hard work. But it's just, you don't want to, you don't want to necessarily have like 4 books coming out at the same time it can be too much, and it takes away from writing new stuff, which is when it gets a little frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Because it changes your mindset.
Yeah.
Tyson Parks, the main character, I have to say that, there's similarities in that person as there is to you. Is there some sort of, connection you have with this, or something you're trying to perhaps work out in your own status by choosing this type of story?
As far as the character of Tyson is concerned, I definitely don't see me in Tyson, but one of the things that Tyson deals with, and I would say this is part of one of the themes, one of the, lesser themes of the story is, we live in a new world, as far as, diversity, as far as, awareness of other people's, like the whole Me Too movement, and being more aware of ourselves, and as a civilization, as humanity, we are so much more aware of ourselves now, and we're so much more, educated about ourselves and educated about, what other people are experiencing, and that we don't have a lot of familiarity with, and I think for a lot of people, it's a struggle, obviously, and a lot of people straight out reject it. Obviously, we've all been on Twitter, and it's such a conflict, and there's so much hate and animosity and frankly confusion. And, when I talk to my parents, sometimes I'm like, whoa, you guys we gotta pull you into the, the modern era in a way. And I think part of what Tyson is going through in this book is that confusion. He doesn't know how to be a contemporary writer. He's so stuck in his heyday of the, of the 80s and 90s that he's like completely baffled, and rejectful of all sort of the new nuances that, our current, society has. And it's part of the book. If there's actually a scene where he has like a fight with this editorial assistant about this very thing. And part of what I wanted to get into, in writing the book is sort of, writing something that was pointedly controversial in a sort of meta way, in the sense that it's like, what the character, like what the book is going through, what the character is going through in the story, but also what the character is going through in his life, if that makes sense, are kind of the same thing. And, we're to the point where there's an Eminem quote at the beginning of the book where he talks, we all need a little controversy. And there's a twist at the end of the book that I won't give away that sort of like plays on this idea as well, where, and there's a lot of readers and reviewers, I would say a handful maybe, who go on Goodreads or go on Amazon and they talk about, this was offensive and this was offensive and this was offensive. And where I'm kind of reading this stuff and kind of laughing a little bit because I'm like, that's the point. And it's the point, it's made pretty obvious if you really pay attention to the story. And there's a lot of people who do get it and who are like, they understand that I was kind of like, I was kind of using it as a vehicle in a way to kind of get across this theme of that sort of societal confusion. And, so it's kind of a lesser theme. It's kind of below all the hysterics and all the monsters and all the horror. But that's something that I really wanted to get across with Tyson's character. And it's not so much about me as much as about, I know it's something that is about more of, I don't want to say torn from the headlines, but more something that I've seen so much of over the last few years. And I really wanted to kind of like write about that subject. So that's why I wanted Tyson to be kind of one of those guys that just didn't really get it.
Right. Yeah. Kind of like me. No, I just, now I see now, you also have another book coming out, I guess, in the summer, and hopefully we get you back on for that when it comes out. Boys in the Valley. So now that's a different type of, writing as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So Boys in the Valley is completely different really than the last two books that we've talked about. Boys in the Valley is, it's about a group of orphans in 1905. They, in rural Pennsylvania at a boys orphanage run by a priest. And these 30 boys, they live and they work and they have this, they're all very diverse backgrounds and they all have these horrible kind of lives in a way because they're orphans and the priests are kind of hard on them. And then like one night, like a man comes to the orphanage and kind of brings an evil with him that sort of infiltrates the boys. And it's kind of a Lord of the Flies meets The Exorcist sort of thing. But that's a very character driven book in the sense that there's like 30 characters that I had to write about, all between the ages of 8 and 16. And then of course the adults as well. So, it was tricky, but the book has just received absolutely mind blowing praise. Stephen King tweeted about it. Cause what happened was it was released as a limited edition. It wasn't really supposed to be released as like a worldwide trade edition. So I released it as a limited edition. They only made 400 odd copies. And Stephen King saw a review of it and tweeted about it, and it became a big thing, big deal. And since then sold it to Tor Nightfire, and they sold it to Orbit. And so it's getting a worldwide release in the UK and US on July 11th. And yeah, so the reviews have been through the roof on it so far. So that's kind of my first, in a lot of ways, that's sort of my first big release, my sort of first, worldwide release. I mean, Child Alone with Strangers, came out with very little hoopla. The publisher really didn't do much to promote it. Kind of a smaller publisher. Cemetery Dance is publishing Gothic, and Cemetery Dance is a very niche horror press. They, very indie. Even though Gothic's getting a lot of acclaim and stuff, and it's definitely getting out there. Ultimately, Cemetery Dance is a smaller press, and then so Boys in the Valley is my first it's a Macmillan here in the U.S. and Hachette in the U.K. So it'll be my first book that's got like a big kind of a big blanket release with actual promotion behind it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited about that book. I'm very excited to see how it does, and I'll be touring pretty heavily for that over the summer. And then the book I'm writing right now is actually the second book in my deal with Nightfire in Orbit that'll come out in 2024. So yeah, very excited to be able to work with those guys, and I'm really hoping that that book takes off. And to your point, Alan, earlier, it's like these books that I have been publishing for the last 5 years. I think hopefully this big release will, bring more attention to all those books that were, sold by smaller presses and stuff like that. So it's exciting time for me. I'm very curious to see how the next year goes.
Well, it's exciting. We've got the Madonna World Tour, and now we've got the Philip Fracassi tour.
I was hoping to kind of hook up with Madonna and do I said you want to do like a combo dates thing. We could sort of match up on the dates, we could do like a book signing, and then you could play.
Yeah.
I haven't heard back.
No, she's probably just behind on her emails right now.
Right. That's what I figured. Yeah. I figured she was.
Here, I'll give you her cell number if you want.
Taking a bath, maybe. Yeah, it's exciting. So we'll see. I've just, I'm going to really kind of pull out all the stops. I'm taking 2 months off of everything just to kind of, I'm going to hop in a van and just kind of drive around the country and sign as many books as I can. And,
be careful.
And even I'm going.
Last time I heard about van life, it didn't end well. So.
No, you'll be getting my hashtag van life updates all the time.
Instagram, and then soon the FBI's chasing you. Come on, that doesn't end well.
There's no such thing as bad press.
No. Yeah, as long as you don't have dad somewhere, that's
No, that would be.
It doesn't help then. Press just doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right, exactly. You can't enjoy the.
So how do people get all these updates? So where do you express your feelings to fans? Do you have like social media, website, hookup apps? Like what do you do to meet your?
I do everything exclusively through WhatsApp. So no, I'm just kidding. I don't know what. That is the only platform I am on. No, I'm in all the usual places. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I even started a TikTok account because I kind of felt like it was necessary. And I have a website, pfracassi.com, which is the best place. But I'm kind of everywhere. There's a fan group on Facebook called Fracassi Freaks that was started by a few guys. And that gets there's a lot of people in that, and it's a lot of fun to kind of hop in and give them little exclusives and, sneak peeks of covers and stuff like that. But yeah, so basically, my website, pfracassi.com, or Facebook, Twitter Instagram are the best places to find me.
Great. We'll have all that up on the website. People can find it with one click. Now, we've been talking to the Philip Fracassi, who's going on tour with Madonna this summer. And and right now his new book is called Gothic. Get out there and buy it.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.